The Federalist Era spanned about 12 years in American politics from roughly 1789 to 1801, when the Federalist Party was the dominant party. During this time period, America witnessed the adoption of the United States Constitution and the expansion and importance of the federal government. In addition, the era saw the growth of a strong nationalistic government under the control of the Federalist Party. Among the most important events of this era was the complex interactions between France and Great Britain, the assertion of a strong central federal government, and creation of political parties.
George Washington obviously set many precedents because he was the first president. These included serving a two-term presidency, having neutrality in foreign affairs, using force to enforce the law, having a cabinet, and making an inauguration speech. During the time when Hamilton's financial plan was needed, the United States was $54 million in debt, and the states additionally owed $25 million. In order to pay this debt, Hamilton proposed that in order to account for the lost money, the United States would borrow new money at a low interest rate. The idea was to combine everyone's debts and pay them off together. This did not sit well with the states that had already paid their debts. However, a compromise was made with a three-step plan to pay off the war debts, raise government revenues, and create a national bank. Hamilton used high tariffs and government-financed transportation to lessen the need for the U.S. to rely on England. This is important because America was a new nation and needed financial stability. Hamilton decided that there should be a Bank of the United States to collect taxes, hold funds, and make loans. However, Thomas Jefferson deemed the bank unconstitutional because it was not specifically stated in the Constitution. Hamilton responded by stating that the bank is constitutional because Congress has the power to do anything necessary to continue its function. President Washington signed the bill that created a bank for 20 years. He decided that the bank was necessary for the nation's financial health. This created political parties because of the division. When the French Revolution began in 1789 between Britain and France, the Americans found themselves in the middle of a conflict. This is because the French helped the U.S. during the Revolutionary War, and America is closest economically to Britain. In order to avoid the war and the conflict, Washington decided that neutrality would be the best policy. The Citizen Genet affair occurred when British ships were replaced as French ships being manned by the U.S. Henry Knox advised Washington that this showed favoritism towards the French during the war in which America had neutrality. Washington demanded Genet's recall. However, Genet was allowed to stay in America because he would no longer be representing France.
The Whiskey Rebellion began in 1789 when protective tariffs and excise taxes were put in place by Alexander Hamilton in order to increase revenue. Excise taxes angered frontier farmers, and in 1794, farmers in western Pennsylvania refused to pay the taxes and attacked federal marshals in Pittsburgh. Hamilton saw the rebellion as an opportunity for the federal government to show its authority. 15,000 militiamen were called upon, and they scattered the rebels without killing a single one. This was a watershed moment in the consolidation of federal power in domestic affairs.
Many people have compared the Whiskey Rebellion to Shays' Rebellion, which took place shortly after the end of the Revolutionary War. Why do you think that is?
Well, the Shays' Rebellion showed a need for a strong central government, while the Whiskey Rebellion showed that that strong central government had arrived and that they could now enforce laws.
Jay's Treaty was signed between the U.S. and Great Britain to displace tensions about British military forces being in America after the Revolutionary War and British interference with American trade. John Jay avoided war by passing the treaty with the Senate and succeeding by withdrawing British troops from and getting America the right to trade in India and the Caribbean in exchange for limits on the export of cotton. The Pinckney Treaty was when Spain recognized crucial borders of the U.S. at the Mississippi and the northern border of Florida. Spain also granted Americans the right to deposit goods for transshipment at New Orleans and allowed the United States to store goods on Spain's soil.
Washington's farewell address was written at the end of his second term, right before his retirement. It warned Americans of the political dangers they faced and that they must stay true to their values. The address made 4 main points. He warned about preservation of the Union and how sectionalism could be its downfall. Another warning was of the dangers of factions and the baneful effects of the spirit of party. Religion and morality are also important in a self-governing nation. Finally, Washington warned that a strong foreign policy was also vital.
The XYZ affair occurred when France seized American ships in response to the Jay Treaty, which upset France as it closed American ports. In response to American diplomats, France secretly sent 3 agents known as X, Y, and Z to demand a loan for France. When America refused, public outrage erupted, and when the U.S. repealed alliances with France, an undeclared naval war began.
The Alien and Sedition Acts were a series of 4 laws enacted in 1798 that restricted the rights of certain groups of people. The Naturalization Act increased the number of years a non-American had to be living in America before they could become a full citizen from 5 to 14 years. The Alien Act allowed the president to force non-Americans that he thought dangerous to leave the country. The Alien Deportation Act allowed for the arrest and deportation of any non-American during wartime. And finally, the Sedition Act made it a crime to do any false, scandalous, or malicious writing. This resulted in the jailing of 25 newspaper editors, most of them Democratic Republicans. The response to these acts was marked, and both Kentucky and Virginia passed resolutions opposing these acts.
The Virginia and Kentucky resolutions were written in response to the Alien Sedition Acts. The resolutions said that the government was overstepping its bounds and violating the idea of a contract with the people. This idea of a contract was the basis for the Declaration of Independence. Both resolutions were written by Thomas Jefferson. Both legislatures claimed that the federal government had assumed powers belonging to the states. The Kentucky resolutions of 1799 further asserted that the states could jointly nullify federal laws they considered unconstitutional. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Kentucky resolutions of 1798. James Madison wrote the Virginia resolutions. The resolutions did not, however, win much support from other states.
The election of 1800 pointed out issues in the Electoral College as the framers of the Constitution did not ever plan for a tie. In the 1800 election, Thomas Jefferson and his running mate Aaron Burr both received 73 votes. Eventually, the House of Representatives decided to make Thomas Jefferson president. In 1804, the 12th Amendment was passed, making the Electoral College have separate votes for the president and the vice president.
The name of American, which belongs to you, in your national capacity must always exalt the just pride of patriotism, more than any appellation derived from local discriminations. Of all the dispositions and habits related to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports.
The Federalist Era was key in the development of the United States. This was a time when political change ensued and resulted in the formation of the first political parties. Additionally, relationships with both foreign countries and states within the Union came together to form a more perfect union.